The leadership of the NRA is built on myth. I would not have guessed that anybody who has diminished credibility could get up and do something and diminish their credibility more than what Wayne Lapierre did on Friday in his press conference. Average folks, just like Corey said, if average folks know that you got to do something about this, they know it's comprehensive. They know this. I live in Texas. I own 5 guns. And all the big folks I associate with, when you go out hunting, you take your guns and you put them in a safe and everybody goes to bed. The Wild West, everybody talks about the Wild West, the Wild West. Almost every part of the Wild West is you checked your guns at the door before you walked in somewhere in a Wild West town, is the way it used to be. I worked for Senator Benson, who you know and served in your administration. Senator Benson represented Texas. He helped pass the assault weapons ban. Though it may not solve the problem, I actually expected Wayne Lapierre to stand up and say exactly what he said, and then say, oh, by the way, I have stuck to too many dogmatic positions for too long, and it's time we ban the assault rifle.
Membership agrees with these
so this is the NRA. Yes, this is the important. The NRA is built on myths at this point in many ways. The NRA has 4 million members. It is essentially a lobby for gun manufacturers, not for its members. The majority of them, according to a poll commissioned by Frank Luntz, a Republican pollster, do not agree with the NRA's positions on background checks, on ban on assault weapons. I think that's very important because the NRA's myth has put us in a stranglehold in this country. The other thing I'd say is I respect the noble sentiments about the need to treat mental illness, the need to deal with the video games in our culture. But other Western industrialized countries have mental illness problems, have video culture. Japan is at the cutting edge. They don't allow access to military assault guns. This is not about freedom. This is about tyranny and destruction.
It's about all of this. This is what frustrates me.
But the problem is, George, the problem is the mental illness. No, the mental illness argument has been used to evade action. More guns and bullets, more dead children. We must regulate guns. And I do think it's a tipping point moment, not just the Daily News and the New York Post, but you're seeing pro-NRA senators like Senator Manchin, Senator Warner, Governor Hickenlooper in Colorado, others saying we must move. Speed is of the essence.
I agree with that, and I think what you're saying, though, Senator Manchin did say we have to consider everything comprehensive. We should give Grover a chance to respond to some of this now.
Well, I think, look, the National Rifle Association represents a great number of Americans, and 20% will tell you in polls that they belong to the NRA. And so, one, there's a very important issue. One is we should support the First Amendment as well as the Second Amendment. I'm not quite sure. Some people's suggestions of censorship there worry me. But look, one, we ought to calm down and not take tragedies like this, crimes like this, and use them for political purposes. President Obama's been president for 4 years. If he thought that some gun control would solve this problem, he should have been pushing it 4 years ago. He didn't. Democrats had a majority in the House and a supermajority in the House and the Senate for the first 2 years that they were in office. If they thought that this was really an important issue, they might have done something then. They didn't. So what they're now doing is politicizing a tragedy rather than trying to do something that might
But can I make
be more helpful.
I just want one point that's very important. What happened in Connecticut was a grievous tragedy.
Yes.
But every single day in America, every single day, people in communities like mine go to bed fearing violence. You see 34 people murdered every single day. And with carnage like this going on regularly in our country, when you have gun owners and non-gun owners, NRA members and non-NRA members that all agree, forget the ideological divides, all agree on changes that would make cities like mine safer. I'm tired of the political debates. They're not necessary. I'm tired of the ideological positions. We don't need to even visit them. Let's stick to the pragmatic center where all Americans believe the same thing, and let's pass legislation that would make America safe.
Pragmatism means what works. And those states with concealed carry permits that allow honest and decent citizens to carry a gun with them, they have less crime, and the crime has fallen faster than in states that don't.
When there's a bad kid in the schoolyard with a baseball bat, we don't give everybody else baseball bats and say go to deal with it and defend yourself. What we do is we take the baseball bat away from the bad kid or the bully, and then we sit down and say, what can we do to make sure this doesn't happen? We got to take the baseball bat away from the bully.
Take domestic violence. Let's look at the data. 1 out of 2 women murdered by a gun are being murdered by someone they know. States that have taken the secondary markets and shut them down. They've reduced those murders by 40%. It didn't eliminate them. I'm not saying these are solves to the problem, but eliminating these secondary markets, which 74% of NRA members believe that should be done, so you don't have a terrorist who can't fly in a plane, could actually stop them from getting gun laws. Let me make some change.
Are there any of these proposals that everyone here is calling common sense? Do you think the NRA is open to considering any kind of reforms in the wake of this tragedy?
Well, the argument is, look, we ought to do things that work, and we ought to not do things that don't work, and we ought to take a look at what has worked. You want to drop the number of murders, you want to drop the number of rapes, you want to drop the number of armed robberies, have more people with concealed carry permits in your state. The data out there is clear. It's been out there for decades now. We know what works, which is allowing honest people to carry guns on themselves.
Statistics also show that the states that have the more gun regulation and less gun ownership have lower levels of gun violence.
No, Chicago is probably the most heavily regulated city and state in the nation. Illinois that has the strongest gun laws. D.C. out there until recently.
Coming back, other countries, I come back to this, even individualistic countries, like Australia. In 1996, they had a gun rampage. You take the guns out, as Corey said, you begin to take the guns out. You begin to reduce the harm that can be done.
But
there's no question.
Two small points, two discrete points. One is there are many Americans who are very pro-Second Amendment, but they are not gun people themselves. I can tell you, let me speak for them for a moment. We consider the phrases like assault weapon, semi-automatic, automatic, assault rifle. All of those phrases appear to be terms of art used by people who occasionally are trying to mislead. I wish we could publicly make clear exactly which of these weapons are most dangerous, most unhelpful, and most unneeded. We could do that publicly. We could take a week and do that. I wish that would happen.
Second thing,
I think somebody has to fairly make the point here that Americans have guns, not only because they love the sport, not only because they love hunting, not only because they think it is their right, not only in some cases because they're a little nutty and love guns. They also have guns because they are afraid. They think their society and their culture are very frail and in trouble. They think someday they may be on their own. They want guns to protect themselves and protect their families. I think that has to be respected and not denigrated.
A military assault weapon which can pump 30 to 40 bullets in the face of a kid. That's what we need to protect ourselves in this country.
Look, those things I am against. But the idea of gun ownership and some significant gun ownership and strength is not to be denigrated. It is to be understood. Look, we have to understand the culture we're in. A lot of Americans are very blue right now after Newtown because they think we can't turn this around. We are going to descend into violence.
We're having the wrong debate again.
Oh my goodness.
Listen to me. The people dying in Chicago, the people dying in Newark are not being done with law-abiding gun owners.
That's right.
We do not need to go after the guns that a law-abiding, mentally stable American, that's not America's problem. What's happening in our inner cities, and this is why I get, don't wave Chicago, because where are Chicago's guns coming from? We trace the weapons that come into my city. They're not coming, and when residents look to me and say, stop the carnage, Corey, what I say is, look, the guns we're tracing, I have no power to stop them coming into my city as Rob doesn't coming into Chicago. They're coming from places that have free secondary markets where criminals and gun runners so easily buy weapons and pump them into communities like mine, where it is easy for a person who is a criminal to get their hands on a gun. No person, the NRA included, no person can justify a system in America where somebody like the Mumbai terrorists who didn't use a bomb, who used automatic and semi-automatic weapons that you could so easily get in this country.
That's why law enforcement support Corey.
We're finding these weapons on our street more and more. My police director, 25-year professional, has never seen as many automatic weapons that are showing up in my community, and they're not coming from law-abiding citizens. They're coming from a secondary trade.
Who's using them? Gangbangers? Who's using them? Who's killing people?
Criminals are killing people, not law-abiding gun owners.
That is going to have to be the last word today. This has been a terrific